then you might say you have a covering over it, right? If you can see that. So this is the public section. You walk in here, and this is the private section, otherwise known as my father's house. From what I understand, I can't validate all the information, but that the private section of the tent is the father's place, the man's place, and this is the public section. So you know we have a story about Abraham sitting in his tent in the cool of the day and talking to the people. Well, he'd be here, but this is his private space, you know, the man's lair, as it were. But the bet then is a picture of that floor plan, the private space, the public space. Bet also, drawn like this, is kind of an embryonic shape. You know, you can picture the little, and most, whether it's human or tadpole or what, most embryos all have that same shape, which is the initiate materialization of life. As far as the gimel goes, it's where you get the concept of an animal, like a camel, that's a transport vehicle. So if you have a camel with this long neck, right? It's all about the neck. So there's your gimel. Because a gimel's not just a camel, but it's a conduit. The neck of the camel is the conduit where he swallows and breathes. That's a gimel. A gimel is also a roadway. It's the path that the camel walks. So a pipe that stuff flows through is a gimel. A road that you transport cars on is a gimel. That which the camel carries, the object that is being carried, is also a gimel thing. So each letter isn't just that object, it's other stuff that's around that object. So the shape here of the gimel being a camel's neck, as it were, is kind of like, I think it's called Occam's razor, which is the most elegant, which is, they say, the simplest basic design, which is not confusing, which is just fundamentally it, as far as the concept goes. So what I tried to do here in this was take the most fundamental designs, which in their simplicity tell the whole story. So a dallet, for example, is a door, and like this picture here, it also means that which hangs. Well, here we have a door, well, it hangs on hinges, that's to the side, but if you had a teepee or a cave, you might take a skin and tack it up so it hangs, and you pull it aside to walk in. So that which hangs is the door. That's where you come up with a dallet. Okay, and there's the delta in Greek is actually an upside down version of this. And if you look at Frank Seekin's books, you'll see it's different shapes. So some people might draw it like that. The delta in Greek is shaped like that. I wrote it like that on purpose because on the one hand, this is kind of like an arrowhead pointing in that direction. You know, the Mogan David, the shield of David, is two dallets interposed. That's a whole other thing. But the dallet stands for the phonetic sound D, and when you spell David in Paleo-Hebrew, you'd have a D connected, that's a Vav, to a D. And if you connect two Ds and you have like that, those are two Ds connected, you could say, well, that's the name David. That's just not a Jewish star or a Hebrew symbol or the seal of Solomon, but you could say that in Paleo, that looks like D connected to D. David, because David's name was written like that. There's two ways to write his name. That's Dud, or Dawid, because this is pronounced, the Vav is pronounced as an O, a U, a V, or a W, but sometimes there's no I sound. So if you said Dalet, Vav, Yod, Dalet, that would be more like David. You'll see it written both ways in the scriptures. And the reason why it's written one way or the other is another part of the conversation. Why would sometimes it be spelled this way and sometimes that way? There's the addition of a yod. If we think of it in English, it's simply phonetic. If you think of the function of the letters, The fact that that Yod is there changes everything, which we'll address. Anyway, so this is what's hanging. Hey, and again, I'm going through these letters here right now to show you the significance of their shape, so that when you see the letter, you'll think of the meaning. It's not just the phonetic sound. Think of the meaning, because the meaning at this primary basic level is everything. Everything else we talk about, the rest of the entire day. And anytime you pick up one of these letters to read this book, it goes back to this that we're talking about right now, the shape and the meaning of the letters. Therefore, for me to put the letters into this shape was to assist and actually be the vehicle of comprehending the language. Again, go back to Daniel. For Daniel to change the letters changed the comprehension, or so I project. Therefore, it's critical to put the letters back into the paleo in order to affect our minds differently, because what you see is processed differently if you look at it in the modern or if you look at it in paleo. And frankly, if I look at Jeff Benner's paleo, it scrambles my thinking. I find it disturbing. I don't know why. I'm not knocking Jeff Benner, but what I'm saying is that I've written this font because my brain works here and it doesn't so well when I look at Benner's. Okay, anyway, this hay, if you can picture light coming through a window as rays of light. Here, in fact, just to make it a little easier, let me start from the beginning here, kind of quickly, giving you the letters. Okay, so the Aleph, right? You've got an ox with his ears and his horns. There's the ox head. There's Aleph. Bet is the floor plan of the tent. Gimel, the head of the camel. Dalet, it's see if you have a teepee and it's hanging on the door. If you have a window in a wall and the sun's shining in, that's the hay. It literally means window, but what happens when you have light? It illuminates things. You have a laser pointer. I'm doing a hay thing here. See, I'm pointing at that. The letter right there. See, the letter hay literally means the. That letter hay, in paleo, apparently from what I understand, this shape is still used on weather maps to speak of the wind. The north wind, you might say the south wind. It's still, so hay is also like the breath, the word, the specified direction. Vav is a connecting, it's a bridge from here to here. Man is a connector, he's a bridge. Joining what's here to here, he's also a bridge. Man is the link between, as it were, heaven and earth. Man is the vehicle by which the Almighty works His way and communicates His message. Man is the bridge. Vav doesn't only mean nail or hook, but it also means man. It's the sixth letter, which is why they say the number 6 is the number of a man. Man's, the beast, 666, that's where that comes from. The next one's pretty obvious, which is a Zion, which is a weapon, which may not be a hatchet, it could be a knife or a spear, but it's a weapon, and it means what a weapon does, which is to cut or chop. Or it means now that you're going to get cut, like a tree full of fruit, and I'll point this out in a minute. A tree full of fruit has finished its job, which is to bear fruit. It's at the threshold of a new disposition, a new era in its life, which is to say its fruit's going to get picked off. So Zion can mean a tree full of fruit. The next one then, Het, I'll make a reference to something here. The Big Dipper and the Little Dipper of the stars. It's from my understanding, and I have to qualify these things because somebody may say, hey, you're wrong about this and that, but it's my understanding. It's my understanding that the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper were called that because the pioneers coming across the plain said, hey, that looks like a ladle by which we, pick up water and dip it. So they called it the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, the Big Bear and the Little Dipper. But actually what it's supposed to be is Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, where this is the tail of the bear. But it's like, wait a minute, bears don't have tails, so why is that called the Big Bear and the Little Bear? Somebody stuck that tail on the donkey, as it were. But that's one time you shouldn't believe Balaam's ass, I guess. But the point is, where did that come from? There's another concept that here's a sheepfold, and here's the sheep walking out of the sheepfold. Or here's a sheepfold, and here's the sheep coming back into the sheepfold. Hence, the Big Dipper and Little Dipper is sheep and a sheepfold, and another sheep and a sheepfold. You put those two together, two sheepfolds, and you hook them together with one nail. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Two sheepfolds hooked together by one nail. One man. Is that kind of like the two houses of Israel held together by the man, Yeshua, perhaps? The kingdom of Israel, the two houses? Anyway, Ephraim and Yehudah, that's a head. So when I see that picture, I see the two houses, the kingdom given to Israel, held, fixed by the nail, the man nailed. Tet looks like a shield. It also looks like a circle with a tav in it, which is to say an authorized signature, a stamp, a branding iron. It's like, here it is. That's it. So tet means 360 degrees because it's a full circle. In fact, that looks like the modern tet. That's a modern tet. It's a full circle, depending on how you draw it, which is why they say it's something that wraps around. But wait a minute, the psalmic is a winding, but the psalmic is written like that, like a winding. So both the psalmic and the tet look like something which winds around. Well, this is also like the head of a snake and the tail of the snake. So it's like the snake grabbing hold of his own tail. So they'll say, they meaning people who study the language, especially in the modern, will say that the tet is a snake. Well, snakes are evil. Well, that makes tet an evil letter because it's a snake.